Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Flexi webinar. My name is Bennett. I'll be the moderator for today. Our presenter is Bobby Cagle, Sales Manager at SAi. We also have Jason Stone joining us here. And today, Bobby will be showing us everything you need to know about creating gradients in Flexi. After the presentation, we'll be able to answer any questions you have either about gradients or any other Flexi topics. So feel free to put those questions in the chat and we'll answer as many as we can. We are recording the webinar as always, so if you want to review anything that Bobby discusses or share it with someone else, we'll be sending you the link to that recording this afternoon, so look out for that. And that's about it for me, so I'll go ahead and turn it over to Bobby.
Great. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it, Bennett. Yeah, definitely. If anybody has any questions while I'm going on today, if you want to enter them in the chat box, Jason is going to interrupt me and maybe ask questions that anybody may have during the session. So we want to make it fairly interactive. I want to be able to, address any questions you have. One of the things I want to address right off the bat before we even get started, because a lot of people are going to have questions about Illustrator gradients inside of Flexi. There are usually a lot of problems importing Illustrator gradients into Flexi. And the reason for that, I've been talking to some of our developers before, is Illustrator has a lot more coding as far as their gradients go than what Flexi does. So when you bring a Illustrator gradient into Flexi, we don't have all the tools and all the options that Illustrator does. So that gradient probably is not going to import well. The better way to do it would be maybe to convert it to rasterize it, convert it to a bitmap before you bring it in, and then it may handle it a little bit better. So just wanted to kind of get that out of the way at the beginning, because that's a lot of questions I get on gradients in Flexi have to do with Illustrator importing. So just want to kind of bring that up at the beginning. But all right, so gradients in Flexi. So first thing we're going to do is we're just going to create a little rectangle here. And if you'll notice, we actually have gradients down here at the bottom already done. So we've created some already. So you've got gradients like a blue, a circular, we have multicolors, even just a single color. So if you want to come in and start with one of these, this is a good way to kind of get started with some of your gradients and kind of get you going. And then what I'm going to show you now is how to take these and maybe edit them or create your own custom gradients in here. All right, so all these are down here in the standard swatch table down at the bottom. So we're going to stop right here on the rainbow gradient. That's one of the real popular ones. Now, also, actually, I'm going to go back to a solid color here to begin with here. And so what we're going to do is to be able to access the gradients, you need to bring in your fill stroke editor, which is right here. So usually, hopefully everybody knows, Design Central is kind of the brains behind Flexi. Everything you do kind of gets reflected in there. But then another important part is the fill stroke editor, which is this right here. Now you notice in the fill stroke editor, this says I'm doing a solid fill. Well, I can click this right here and say gradient fill. And then I can pick any of those gradients that we already had ready to go. So we're going to pick the rainbow gradient. We've named it and everything like that. So what I'm going to do now is kind of go through this fill stroke window once we have our gradients here. Okay, so one of the things you can do, as I said, you can pick a different gradient if you wanted to. You can go to that or go back, to the rainbow. But then the next block over here, we have an option where we can do multiple types of gradients. So how did they create the bullseye gradient that you saw? Well, so this is our linear gradient right here. The circular gradient is right here. Comes out and kind of looks like that. Then we also have another gradient that's, I think they call this a conical gradient, kind of comes out in a line like that. And then we have, and I'm not even sure what the name of this one is, but it's more of a rectangular gradient. Now, if you'll notice, all these gradients are kind of the 0, 0 point is down here at the very bottom of my screen. Well, how do we fix that? Well, the one thing that you can do is come over here to this little arrow, which is called Edit Gradient. So when I click that right there, it gives me this bar. Now, this right here is my center. And so I now could move that up and put it right here in the center of my drawing. And now my gradient is centered. I now also have the ability to be able to change the size of the gradient. I can pull it out where it's out there. I can pull it in. And I can also rotate the gradient. Make it come up there, put it at a 45-degree angle. So you can do several different things like that. Now we can also do that with all of our other gradients. When I do this, if you'll notice, I can take my 0, 0 point. And so I can pull this gradient to come this way like that. Or if I decide I would rather have it come this way like this here, boom, right there. There we go. So we can take that, we can stretch it, we can pull it. One of the other things you can do, if you'll notice all these blocks on here, I actually can move these blocks right here on my screen if I want to kind of change and see what that effect that makes to the gradient. So maybe we pull them up, kind of like that. So we can really kind of do some interesting things with your gradient this way. And this is just going to depend on your creativity and what you're going to do right there. And again, the circular gradient, same kind of thing. We'll pull this out, make this a little bit, more circular like that. And then maybe we want that gradient to get a little bit closer to the outside. So maybe we pull all these things way out here like this and give a little bit more of a different look to it, more like that. So really, it is really just going to depend on your creativity as how you want to edit and make that gradient look, depending on what you have on the screen here. So were there Jason, any questions so far on what I've done here on this?
No questions yet.
All right. Well, then, all right. So with this edit, one of the things you can also do while you're editing this, and let's go back to the linear bar here. So just make it a little bit more easier to see here. Okay. So one of the things you can also do while you have this right here, and there are 3 ways to do everything in Flexi. So this is one way you can do this. You actually could come down here if you had a different color that you wanted to go into the bar. Let's say you wanted this to be more of a blue right here. So it goes red, blue, yellow. You actually could come down here, grab a blue, bring it up here and drop it right on that swatch. And now you've added blue into your color table right there. Okay. So that is one way to do that. The other way to do that is we have an advanced tab right here. Now, when you click on the advanced tab, it brings up this block right here. Now with that, what you can do is you actually can select a color, like we'll select that blue that I just picked right there. So you see when it becomes selected, the color changes over here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to select that blue. We're going to click our drop down, and then we're going to change it back to that lighter rust orange color. And then OK. So now it's applied that. So now we're going from red to an orange to a yellow and then to green. So again, that is the way that you can edit that. The other thing you can do also from here is you can actually pull colors directly off of the color. So I'm pulling these colors off. We're going to pull this one maybe over here. You can also add swatches to it too. So if I want to add, so I've got this here. Let me click OK and show you what that would look like. Although I pulled those off. When I go to advanced now, I could actually even add another color right here. So click that and then make it a yellow. And then OK. So there we go. So I've added some colors, created my swatch, changed it, to more of a custom color, just the way I want it to look like right there. All right, now, one of the other things that there's a tab here that I haven't mentioned yet. And one of the things I want to show you on this is what happens. This one right here, you can change it from RGB to CMYK to a spot color or a dual spot color. So that is actually going to affect the way this looks. So when I do this, and let me actually go back to my standard gradient here. Let me pull this one back up. So when I go from RGB to CMYK, I want to show you the color change it makes to the gradient itself. So when I click on this, you'll notice the color changes fairly drastically in that. So I've gone from an RGB to a CMYK color family, and that has changed the way that gradient's going to look. So it is going to print a little bit differently when you do that as well. Okay. The other option is, and let me actually draw a new square here and make it. So a lot of times you're going to be doing, say, you want a pure gray, white to black gradient. Okay. Now, when I do this right now, it is going to print this as a CMYK composite because it's defined as RGB or as CMYK. Notice the difference in the color between the two. Okay. RGB makes it a little darker. CMYK is a little lighter, which is kind of the opposite of what happened up here. Your CMYK got a little bit darker. But we can also do this. It's called spot color. So that is a single spot color. And of course, it went away. But so let's make it. Now, one of the things we're going to need to do, you'll notice I don't have any spot colors down here in my color palette, which is why that went away, because I had that as a CMYK black. So let's cancel this. Let's make it black again. So what you have to do is you have to make sure that you have the correct color palettes open when you're getting ready to do something. So we need to open up a color palette with spot colors on it. So I'm going to right click here. I'm going to go to Open Table. And then right here, I can come to my library, and then I can go to my Pantone color swatches. And then I'm just going to go to the solid coated. And I know all these little swatches with the little dot means that that is a spot color. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is I've got a spot hexachrome black right here. So again, let's make this my swatch. Okay. And then I'm going to go to my advanced tab right here. And I'm going to tell it to go to the hexachrome black. Okay. And then I'm also going to tell it to make that a spot. And I'm still going to have to do that again here. Okay. So then come here and make that the spot black. And what that will do should give you a much better black when you're trying to do a spot color black. And it will then just use your black channel while you're printing. Okay. And then once you have it here, if you want it to go the other way, obviously I can come here and I can pull this here and I can pull this back over here. So, and depending on how much black you want in there will depend on how you do that. Okay. So the more further I pull this over, the more solid that becomes on that end. The further out I pull it, the lighter that gradient will be if you're just trying to get a kind of a gray looking type gradient. So that's,
hey, Bobby,
yeah.
There is a question that goes along with what you're doing here with that black gradient. The question is, how do you create a gradient from a color to a transparency?
Okay, so that is, again, that is an Illustrator function that Flexi is not able to do currently. We may be working that on some future revisions, but I tried to make this into a transparency and it would not do that. So when I try to make this color a transparency, it just makes the whole thing transparent. So unfortunately, because I've tried to, and again, I could go from CMYK black. And if I try to go, I believe, to the transparent right here, it just does not want to fill that in because I believe it still leaves it as a white. And it does. So it's not going to allow me to add the transparency as a color. All right. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, and then there's a couple other questions. Do you mind going over those real quick, Bobby?
Go right ahead.
The first one here we have is sometimes when I'm working with a shape with gradients, it disappears or changes the positions of the colors. Is there a way to lock it in?
Not really a way to lock it. Really, the only thing you're going to be able to do is come here with this, and then, so for example, if we were on this one, you know, you're just going to have to move this dot to where you want it to be. Okay. This is the center point here. So, because one of the things I was trying earlier, and what you'll notice, let's say I did a distortion to this. Okay. If I distorted this, and let me pick this distortion here. So you'll notice when I do this distortion, the gradient doesn't distort with it. It stays as is. Okay. So there's really no way to be able to get that gradient to follow this along. And then if I need to move the center point, then I basically have to come back here, and then come to my swatch table, and then go to the gradient fill, and then change that at that point. Hopefully that answers that question.
Okay. And then one more real quick.
Yeah.
How do I make a custom color to use in the blend? And how do I keep that blend saved with the file?
Okay. Yeah, I can show you. I'm going to show you. Tell you what, I will get to that here in a little bit when we make some. I'm going to make a custom swatch table here a little bit later on, and I'll try to cover that at that point in time. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So let me see where I am here. RGB spot. Okay. The one other thing I want to show you guys is this. Let's say you have a printer that has maybe spot, like the Roland VG2 with the spot green and spot orange, and you want to do a color fade that's got spot colors in it. All right, so we're going to come here. We're going to just make this like this. Let's go to our advanced tab and pull it in here, and we're just going to pull off a couple of the colors here. Pull this one off, pull this one off. And then I'm going to select this color, and I'm going to tell it to be a spot, say a spot orange right here. And then I'm going to select this one and say make it a spot green. Okay, and there's a green. I'm going to say okay. Also, I want to also click this right here, duotone spot, and then say okay. So now I've got a color going from spot green to spot orange, and I can pull those in to make it a little bit better, you know, like this right here. Now, how do we work with that? Well, what happens when we hit rip and print, okay, and we pull up our production manager, which will open here in just a second. So there's my design, and let me get the printer to come up here. So there's a TrueViz 2. You can use this with any printer that's got spot colors, whether it be an Epson or anything else, or a flatbed printer with white ink or anything like that. So what you're going to need to do is come in here to your color option tab and go to mapping. And I'm going to tell it to map this to my orange and map the green to the green ink cartridge. So now with that selected like that, it will print the orange using the orange cartridge and the green using the green cartridge. So it will not be doing a CMYK composite, and it will give you a better, brighter orange and green. All right, so just wanted to make sure you all knew that and knew how that worked on there. Okay, without selecting one of these two spot colors, it is going to print it as a CMYK or as an RGB color family, and it will change the color when you do it that way. All right, so okay. Now, I was going over the advanced tab a little bit, but let's look at that here in a little bit more detail. And then let me cancel this. Let's get this back to this right here. So the advanced tab. So one of the things you can do with the advanced tab is you can actually name this gradient. So if I wanted to make a special gradient, say I wanted to pull a couple of colors off here and here, and say here, and then this is the swatch that I wanted. We'll pull this over here, pull this one here, and then I'm going to call this maybe modified. I'll just call it that for right now. And then I can say add to swatch table. All right. And then when I say OK now, it's going to ask me which swatch table do I want to add this custom gradient to. So this is kind of answering that question here a few minutes ago. So I can go to my default and say OK. And then you'll see now that that has added that modified to my swatch table. Okay. So that adds that right there. Now, the other thing you can do at this point, if you don't like that one, okay, I can right click this and delete it. And now it's gone. Okay. So that gives you multiple things with being able to add gradients. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a couple of objects on here. We're going to do that, and we're going to make it, so we're going to go here, go to gradient, and we'll make it, say this one right here. We'll come over here, move that over here into the middle. And then let's make, instead of green, we'll make this kind of a purple or something like that. We'll make it dark blue. Okay. So we'll do something like that one. Let's create another shape and just put kind of this gradient in here. Well, and let's customize that one as well. We'll make this into like a cylindrical like that. And then one of the other things that, whoops, let me get my Design Central out of here. One of the other things that is kind of neat that you can do is I can actually just drag and drop colors right onto this bar as I want to. I think I can do that. But let's actually do it right up here. I can bring it up here and drag and drop it right there. Like that, go to advanced and make it green. So we're gonna have to click that one. I think if you click it exactly right, it'll put those on there. So we're just doing a couple of things like that. Make this a little smaller. So we've got, as you see, I make lovely gradients when I'm doing my custom colors here. All right, so now let's come in here and make this into this one right here. And let's go back to my advanced tab again. And let's add something here, add something here. Make that into a, let's say a green, and make that one into a yellow. All right, so I've got multiple lovely gradients that I've created, okay? But with these gradients, I want to save these gradients. And even if I had a custom color, so you were asking about a custom color to be able to create a custom color, I actually could bring my RGB color mixer in here and create a custom, say, CMYK color. So you can create that. My CMYK color thing is not. So we can bring in red, green, blue, just kind of create our own custom color, okay? And once I create that custom color, you actually can grab a color and drag it and drop it down here into your swatch table. And now I've created that custom color. So now if I want to use that in one of my gradients now, we can close the color mixer. Let's come here to this gradient. I'm going to come here, go to my advanced tab again, and my advanced tab always shows up on my other screen. I'm going to come here and we'll find that custom color that we just made, which is that, it's actually right there. And then OK. So now I've just added that custom color in here to this swatch mix. OK. Now with all this ready to go, what I can do is I'm going to make a new swatch table. I'm going to go to new table. So I've got a brand new table right here. And I want to take all these custom gradients that I just made. And this is, and you can take all your gradients and add them to this. But if you'll watch, I'm going to right click my mouse button here, merge from document. Boom. I have now just made a swatch table with all these gradients on there. So I can now create a new design, add it here, and create that. And boom, it adds that exact gradient to that. Or I could make it this one or the green. So you can actually, once you have this, you can add multiple colors to this swatch table and different things like that. Questions on that? Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, there's a couple more questions in here. The first one, I don't think there's a way to do it. Bobby, you may know, but is there, can you distort a gradient? For example, like take that gradient and make it follow like a rainbow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was experimenting with that earlier. The only way I would know to do that would be, so with it still being a vector image, you really can't do that. But if I took this and rasterized it, now I could take that, effects, distort, bring that gradient in here like that, and then it would follow that at that point. Actually, it's leaving the gradient as is. So that's one of the problems is when you start using those gradients, it locks that gradient in and it won't actually even distort that bitmap image that I created. So the way I found to be able to do something like that, let's say you wanted to do a rainbow, okay? So we came in here and we created this. Okay, and pulled it around. So let's rotate this up here. Best way I figured out to do this was when you add the gradient to it, okay? We'll do gradient fill here, is to make it into a circular gradient, okay? And then we're gonna have to come here. Now, here's the other problem is the fact that, all right, the gradient isn't exactly the way we wanted it to look. So let's come here. So what we have to do is push all these colors out here where we can see them. And then we'll add a couple more colors here, okay? And then we can drag and drop in other colors right onto here. And then let's drag a pink into here. And then now we've got our rainbow and it's following that distortion. So that's going to be the best way to do kind of a rainbow gradient or something like that, is to make the gradient fit what you're doing. Now, one of the other things that, let's say we're doing gradient on text, okay? So, and let me,
Yeah, and while you're doing text, Bobby, there's another question too that that you'll be able to do with text. How do you put a gradient drop shadow behind text? So I think that's just doing shadow on there. So maybe you could show that as well.
Yeah, so you would take this text, okay, and then you just put a shadow on there, okay? And let's make it a block shadow right here. Let's pull it down where we actually effects shadow. Let me zoom out here where I can get to it. Pull it down here where it's just kind of a little drop shadow like that, okay? And then we're going to come down here and grab our one of our gradient swatches. Okay, so we're going to need to actually apply that, okay? Cut back in here to our fill stroke editor and tell it to make that a gradient, okay? Just like that, and we can pull, you know, say our rainbow gradient, and then at that point we can come in here and stretch this out, just like that. All right, so there's our gradient in the drop shadow. All right, so let's clear the shadow. All right, so putting gradient on text also can get a little tricky, and when you're trying to get it to be exactly the way you want it, okay? So again, if I applied, say, this gradient right here to this text, and let's say I wanted it running up and down, and again, I can always click right here. I can come up here, and I'm just going to make this really small to each other to get it going up and down, just like that. So get it kind of a little bit straighter there. Okay, so we can do it like that. Now, that may or may not be exactly the way you want that gradient to look. Now, you can come in here and play with it again a lot and try to get it, you know, exactly the way you want it like that. One other way you can work with gradients, however, is let's make this a solid color again. And then I'm going to just kind of create a rectangle, and I'm going to put my gradient in there. Okay. And again, let's pull it up. Let's go up and down like we had it a second ago. Right here. Okay. Now what you can do is bring your text. Whoops. If I will do it correctly. Let's grab our text and put it on top of here. And now I can kind of see exactly where that gradient is going to be on my text. And I can get it exactly where I want it so that I can see it there like that. Okay, and once I have it the way I want it, then I can come in here, grab both of those, and effects, arrange, and mask. Whoops, and I thought I had that backwards, but let's redo this. Okay, so we need to move this to the back so the gradient is on top. And let's get rid of that little swatch table. All right, so now I can select these two here, arrange, and mask. So now I've masked that gradient exactly the way I wanted it right onto my text. Questions on that?
Not a question on that one, Bobby, but another question in here. Is there a way to tweak an existing color, not adding a custom color like you did a little bit ago?
Yeah, so that would be using the color mixer. You would just need to pick the color that you want to try to tweak. Okay. And then for some reason, my color mixer is not looking right here. It's turning it black, and I'm not exactly sure why. But when you do that, you should be able to make it a certain percentage. Okay. And then once you have it where you want it, you drag it and drop it down here into your color palette. Okay. And it adds it right there. Okay. So, yeah, you can take any existing color, say a green, okay, and you want to make it, maybe put a little more red in it. You can kind of do that to it. Make it a little darker, you know, that kind of thing. And then once you have it set the way you want it, okay, then you just drag and drop that color down here into your color palette. And what I would probably do is make you a brand new color palette for all your custom colors that you're making. You know, just go to a new table and drag everything into the new color palette, just like that. So I can select here. I can even drag one of the existing gradients down into here. You know, I could pick that one, drag it down into here. So an easy way to make a nice custom color palette. You even can take this palette here after this and rename it. Okay, so once you have it down here, let me see here. So save table as, okay, and I can save it in here, and I can call this new. Type it would be nice. New custom colors. So now this is now called new custom colors. So now if I take this and I get rid of it, see it's called new custom colors right here, and I get rid of it and I want to get it back, all I do is right click an area down here. I go to open table, and then let's go back to my swatch, go to my tables, and there are my new custom colors right there. I can double click on it and now they're up and ready to go. Okay, so that's the easy way to make custom colors, to make swatch colors, use those gradients in the swatch table, and that type of thing. Any other questions like that?
Yeah, so he was actually asking about an existing color point in the gradient, doing a custom color there.
I guess I'm not exactly sure what we're talking about here. Let's, like, you want to grab like a color in here and use it for other spots, I guess. One of the ways you
Or I
do
think,
that.
yeah, I think maybe they're, yeah, just tweaking one of those colors, Bobby. So can you go in there and like change that green and tweak that green a little bit?
So probably, let's see here. Where's my color mixer? Whoops. So with this being, it doesn't look like it's allowing me to grab those colors inside there. So what you're going to have to do probably is find a color, and adjust the color. So if you have a swatch color in the gradient, I don't know that you can really get in there and separate out that one color without doing it down here in the color mixer, where you would just take this off and then add a new color into it that you've already tweaked. So if you need a blue color, you need to tweak it beforehand and then add it to the color, add it to the gradient.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was thinking on there too. And then another question, Bobby, when you grab a color from the color mixer and drag and drop it to your new color table, do you know if that's a new feature in Flexi, or has that always been in Flexi?
It's been around for a while. It's all the way back to version 12. I know you could do that. Because I've been doing that for a long time. So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, I think that covers all the questions we have in there right now.
Okay. So, all right. So the last thing so that was most of how the gradients work. And again, a lot of that is just really being, kind of get in here and playing with them. This conical gradient right here really has a lot of options and features, things that you can do. You can kind of really bring that in, turn it, do a lot of really neat stuff with that, making your center point different spots and things like that. But so like an example of where one of the things that I was playing with earlier is I kind of made a rectangle. Let's just make it a solid here. And then we're going to, I'm going to rotate it like this a little bit. And then let's just stretch it out, kind of do that to it. And then I'm going to add a shadow to it. Just kind of a little shadow right here, okay? And we'll make that shadow red for right now. So one of the things you can do, and then also we'll do something like this and just kind of put kind of a circular ball right here. So a couple of things you can do with just a single gradient, okay? And we'll just use a single color gradient. So like on this right here, I made the shadow, okay, right there to give it a little bit of texture to it. So now it looks a little bit more like like a tabletop or something like that. And then you come over here, go to the, and make this, say, a circular fill. Let's make it a single color. Let's go down here. Let's use, say, this one right here. Come up here, do something like that. Bring that out. One of the other things you can do, this is kind of a harsh, when it's going from the white to the red, it's a little bit harsh right there. So one of the things you can do is kind of bring in some other colors. So let's say we bring, say, like a little bit maybe a little softer red, kind of somewhere in between there. Bring that in there, and then maybe we bring an orange in here to kind of make it a little bit of a softer transition going from, you know, the white to the orange to the red. Same thing with the black down here. Let me pick this tabletop up here. So one of the things you can do with this is picking this here, and let's again go to our advanced tab, bring it in here, and I'm going to add just like maybe something here and maybe here. So then I can come in here with this and tell it to make this kind of a gray right here at this position. So now when I do that, it makes that, whoops, I wasn't on the rectangle, I was on the shadow. So, but you can kind of see what it's doing. It's kind of giving us a little bit of a texture on that shadow. And I don't know, maybe we want to turn this around and kind of do it like this to kind of give it a contrasting look to it. But just a couple of different things you can do, you know, depending on how creative you are with the shadows and the distortions. But so I think that covers just about everything on the creating the gradients. You know, we created swatch tables, we've saved them. You understand that you have to have a spot color palette open to be able to use the spot color options in here, whether it be a single color or multiple colors. And so if there are any more questions, Jason?
Yeah, does the color type selector in the fill stroke editor override the colors in the gradient? For example, if you create a gradient using CMY colors, you've added to your swatch table, but you forgot to change the color type to CMYK instead of RGB, what will happen?
Yeah, good question. Not sure exactly. It's gonna, I mean, you're gonna be able to see what it does. I'm not really sure what overrides what. I believe this is gonna override whatever color the color palette was made. So even if I used a spot color in this, so for example, if I took this and made this like a spot yellow, it's printing that as a CMYK, not as a spot color, okay? Because I have it here defined as CMYK. So whatever this color is here, your gradient is going to be reflected by that. Does that answer that question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Other than that, I appreciate everybody joining us today. You know, not one of the longer presentations, but there was a lot of stuff in here. So hopefully, you know, we hit something that somebody could use to create some great graphics in Flexi.
Yeah, and I'll say while we're waiting for any other questions that might come in, if you do think of a question later, you can always make a comment on the YouTube video for this webinar, and we'll try to answer it in the comments or direct you to somewhere where you can get an answer for it. Just wait a little bit longer here, see if there are any other questions that pop up.
Yeah, thank you for this, Bobby. You did a great job.
Well, thanks. It's kind of fun playing with gradients. You just got to get in there and play with them and see what kind of creative designs you can do. There's a lot of tools that allow you to be able to do, you know, a lot of fun things with the gradients.
Olin is saying here that you can edit an existing color point in the advanced panel of the gradient.
I'm not sure how you get in here and edit that.
So double click the orange.
That? Or Yeah, it's not giving me access to them.
He's just saying double click the solid orange.
That one?
I guess so.
Or here?
I think the top right one.
So, okay, so maybe you can't, yeah, you can get in here. Well, you can change it to a different color, say, or define a custom color. Let's make it some kind of a purple color so we know we did it. Okay, and okay. So, yeah, you can, so you can do it that way. All right, I didn't realize you could access it that way.
All right, thanks for that, Olin. Not seeing any other questions come in, but thanks, Bobby, for answering all of those ones. So we'll go ahead and close it out for today. Thank you all for joining us for this Flexi webinar. Our next Flexi webinar will be about the new Flexi design for Mac OS, and it'll be our first webinar using Flexi on Mac. So if you're running a Mac, you won't want to miss that one. It'll be on June 7th, and we hope to see you there. We'll have a link to sign up for that in the follow-up email that you'll receive later today. Make sure you're subscribed to our newsletter so you won't miss out on any webinars or other announcements. You can sign up for that on our website. Thank you again for attending. We hope you learned something, and we'll see you next time.